Hello, I'm Barbara Peters. Welcome to another episode of the Criminal Calendar. I have my little cheat sheet today since I need to get the sequence of the 9 Alexandra Cooper books written by Linda Fairstein. Right. Hi, Linda.
Hi, Barbara. Great to be with you, always.
It always is. And we've done this once before, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
Do you remember what book it was?
I think it was The Bone Vault. I think it's at least 4 books ago.
So we have some updating.
We do.
I can't believe this is actually Alexandra Cooper number 9.
Well, you started me. You and Rob really are such a part of Alex Cooper's success, and you are forever in my heart, and all my readers should be grateful. You believed in me from the beginning, and not many people did.
I absolutely loved it. And of course, Rob, my husband, was particularly fascinated because as a child he spent summers on Martha's Vineyard.
Yes.
And since you spent summers on Martha Vineyard, it's always in the book, isn't it?
It's always in the book. For me, with the 30-year prosecutorial job, when I met my husband, Justin, he had the home on the vineyard, and I began to go there, and it was such a haven for me to get away from the crime and just be in this place when I stepped off the plane or off the ferry, that I just was so at peace. The physical beauty and the tranquility and a very creative place for me to be, and just safe. So I had to give Alex, I didn't want to give her a husband, so I gave her a trust fund and the house on the vineyard, which is her haven, as the readers can see from the grim nature of the work.
But even so, in that first book, you actually turned the haven into a really dangerous place.
You know, it's something we crime novelists, as you know, are good at. We take a perfectly safe place, and there you've got Phil Craig writing vineyard mysteries and Cynthia Riggs killing people on the vineyard, and there I set my first one. And even Rick Patterson did some vineyard-esque, his early books. So it was irresistible to sort of do it, and that first book, Final Jeopardy, was based on the fact that the actress filming Presumed Innocent was being stalked, and she was playing a sex crimes prosecutor, and I suggested she use our house to get away from the stalker out of season. And my husband said, "Are you crazy? You know, it's so remote, it's so peaceful, and what if this guy finds her there, follows her there? It's trouble for her." And that was really how Final Jeopardy began.
I love that. I think that's such there have only been a few, but I think that's such an arresting opening when someone, you know, picks up the paper, discovers they're dead. It was fun to, it's shameful, but I do like that opening paragraph, and I love that concept of Alex reading her own obituary because the sheriff thought she was the one who died. And openings, as you know, are so hard to do. I think openings and closings, you need to grab that reader from the first paragraph, from the first few pages. And that one came to me I dreamed about that. Well, I thought about it. And not everyone comes quite that way. It's really important to deliver an end, though, that's as good as the beginning, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I don't know. You've talked to hundreds, thousands of crime writers, and many have that approach. Well, the police get there and find a body, and they don't know who did it, so I don't have to set out to know. And I think, for me, it's the compulsive prosecutor. I mean, I want to know that I've got the right guy, and I want to know why he did it.
No
and
surprises.
No surprises,
Yeah.
and absolutely no Perry Mason ending of somebody else coming in the courtroom and saying, you know, I did it. So I'm very compulsive about starting and knowing the end when I start, and everything else twists and turns.
You know, that's so true. I remember, you know, I didn't go to law school like you. I got to read the laws. I had a judge that was leaning over me all the time. It pitched me into federal court in Abingdon when I hardly knew anything. But I can still remember they always said to me, and I know you hear it in law school too, never ask a question that you don't know the answer, for which you do not know the answer in court, because you really can't afford the surprise. And I suppose you take a similar approach, don't you, towards plotting the books?
Yes. I mean, that was definitely drummed into the head of every lawyer who ever went into court. And it's very tempting to do others sometimes. You get in the middle of a cross-examination, and there's really something you don't know, and you know the jury wants that question asked, but it is a very dangerous question. And so in the book, I also feel, because of this genre, that it's so important to be fair to the reader. And I think the only way to lay in clues and I don't want the reader to know the ending. I'm hoping they guess and then take a red herring and go another way. But when the book is over, I think it's much more satisfying for the reader to be able to look back and say, she really did lay that in. You know, yes, if you think about it, in that scene in the tunnel, something was said that made you think it would connect to this suspect. And I just hate the ones where suddenly on page 425 the killer pops out of the closet and there's been no foundation laid. I think it's more intelligent and readers like it more if you give them something to build on. So I like to know who did it.
Didn't Patsy Cornwell, even in her first book, am I not right in remembering that the baggage handler popped in at the end with virtually no foundation? I think that was the... I'm going blank on the name of the book.
Well, the first one was Postmortem.
Thank
Is that
you.
right?
I couldn't think of it. Now, it may not have been Postmortem,
Right.
but I think it was. But I'm almost sure that that was the flaw in that book, was that there was no real way the reader could anticipate.
No. Expressing my ignorance, I think of Postmortem as being the 911 operator.
It may not have been Postmortem,
right,
but there is one of her early books where it turns out the solution is one. Linda Barnes did that too. In her books, I think it was Steel Guitar, where the murderer makes like his first entrance at page 3-something, you know, and I remember writing to Linda saying, what?
It doesn't, and that's exactly what I mean. I mean, there are dozens of those books, and I just think, as a good reader, I just think it's unfair to the reader, and I think really readers do resent it if they read these books and are like to be part of the process of solving them. We like to be surprised by the end, but we don't like to just have it come out of the wall. So that's sort of how I start. I pick my theme, I pick my setting, I decide who the killer is and for what reason the crime occurred, and then I start to set up the other suspects and what direction. And that's more fluid. That I'm much more willing to take movement and.
Well, yeah, you can do that. If a suspect doesn't work out, you can kill him or throw him away or something. You know, I think we sort of come from that fair play school where you're still, even though it's a bigger book than Christie would have written, you're still writing a little bit in that tradition. Whereas thrillers today, you know, the plots don't even have to make sense. A lot of them.
Absolutely right.
They're not mysteries even. They're really more chase novels, you know.
And that's truly what I don't like. I can read them, and some of them are well written. But one of the reasons I do so much historical research and so much procedural work is I feel empty at the end of the car chase and the shootout and just action. I really love to put the book down, to have been well entertained, but to learn something or bond with a character or come away with something at the end of a book. So it's much more my kind of reading. As you say, Agatha Christie, I mean, Sherlock Holmes, when you go back and look at the brilliance from early childhood when I found him, but the woman coming into the office and having the mud stains on one side of the dress, and you know he could say that this was the car in which the window was open, and the carriage in which the window was open, and it was just all of that meticulous plotting. I just respect so much more than pure thriller.
They're a lot of fun, although I have to tell you, when I was teaching crime fiction at ASU, I had them read The Speckled Band because I thought, you know, there was the sensationalist part. And do you know what? That is a pure thriller. There is absolutely nothing that makes sense if you look at it.
And that's, I just contributed to the book that changed my life, which is a wonderful little book that is writers talking about one of the books that changed their life. And for me, it's Conan Doyle. And the example was The Speckled Band because, one, I'm just terrified of snakes. And the idea of the bell pull in the bedroom and the snakes coming out the ventilator, I mean, you're absolutely right. But then when you go back and see, to me, how he laid in that the stepfather had been in India in the war and had developed this passion for this bizarre animals and serpents of the Midwest, and the other sister was killed, and the money involved.